Hello everyone. Welcome to our second LinkedIn webinar. My name is Rob Morgan. I'm the Director of Cloud Connect and Systemologist. So the plan of attack for today in this webinar is to just review how Systemology works. So what I thought I'd do is create a little agenda, talk about the 5 tools of business systems. This is typically the best starting place to see where your business is at. What is Systemology? We'll go through just a bit of an overview. What does Systemology mean? Now, a few of the people in the group today are other systemologists, which is great. It's great to see you guys. The critical client flow. So we're going to go through a critical client flow, or a CCF, with Aaron Whitnish, who's the Director of Content Only. So he's our co-host today. So he's going to be joining us, and we're going to go through the exercise of actually capturing the critical client flow for his business. Okay, so with those 5 tools of business systems, we're going to just briefly touch on the systems platform, finance platforms, project management, Office Suite, and the CRM. So it just means that when you have those 5 tools together, typically most businesses will be using these tools to build the business. So if you're lacking with one, it could be a hole in your business where you're creating some of that frustration and some of the sort of issues where you're just not 100% there. You've got too many things in your brain. You're not really getting things down enough to record them, to put them into your systems platform, which we'll go through in a second as well. So I'll just move over to the next slide here. So what you'll learn by the end of this webinar is understanding those 5 core business system tools and why systems and processes are so important, and how to capture your systems and processes in a critical client flow, or CCF, and how to organize your processes by departments and where to store those systems. So moving along into the next core products here. So they always like to start with this area here. So just gives you an idea within your business where you're currently at, and if you're missing one of these tools. So we know that having an Office Suite, you talking about Google Workspace or Office 365. So those are the core tools that you typically would have. Those are the 2 players. I'm just going to ask if anyone's on, if you could just mute your mic, if possible. Just double check that, just so we keep the background noise. Cool, thanks. And then we talk about the finance side of things. So typically Xero, QuickBooks, and MYOB, those are the big players in the game. So you can see here that every single one of these platforms is cloud-based. We're no longer going to Harvey Norman and buying a box with a CD in and taking it home, sliding it in, and then basically hoping that it works and keeping everything local on your hard drive. So in the event of a fire or a theft or anything horrible happening, you may lose your data. So every single platform we talk about nowadays, and it's pretty stock standard, is a cloud-based product that you're logging into. Now, the project management, you're either going to have ClickUp, Asana, or Monday. It just means with project management, and a lot of my clients I'm working with don't use this. This is an area that's a bit of a gap, because they think, well, we got a list, we have a spreadsheet, we use Outlook, we use this, but we don't have anything to actually capture who's doing what by when. So when you have a project management tool, you're basically listing your project name, what are you doing, what's the task, what's a subtask, and who's doing it and by when. So you can become quite clever in the way that you can keep track of how your jobs are going, your projects are going, or just internal, how your meetings and flows are going as well. The project management tools are great to use. So the next one down, we're talking about a CRM, or customer relation management software. So typically Pipedrive, HubSpot, you've got Keep, you've got Infusionsoft, you've got Salesforce, all of these different platforms are there. The focus that we really want to talk about are the ones that aren't too incredibly expensive, but are incredibly powerful for your business. So most businesses these days need a CRM tool that's allowing them to have a sync with their emails, calendar, and contacts. You want to be able to track your sales. You want to track your activities. That's the core purpose of having a good CRM, is you want to be able to know where your sales are at and how do you actually set your goals and plan for that. So when we move into having, you've got Google or Office, you're using Xero or QuickBooks or whichever, you've got a good project management tool, you've got a good CRM, and now your business is flowing, you're capturing your information. Once you capture everything that you're doing in there, the SystemHUB is your systems management tool. So this is probably a new product or a new platform that most businesses require now, is that 5 core products to have. When you're capturing your systems, you know that this becomes the place you go to understand what a process looks like. So if you're doing anything more than once in your business, that's a process. You need to capture that process. And systemHUB is, when you talk about the standard operating procedures, you're talking about your policies, company policies, and even learning tracks can be found inside systemHUB. So you capture all the things you're doing and all of the other platforms, and you bring them into systemHUB. And that's where they recorded the videos, screenplays, files, pictures, whatever you're looking at, SystemHUB is the hub where you keep all of those processes together so you know what to do. So what I want to move into is more the systemology approach. So systemology, and if you've ever read the book, and if you haven't read the book, let me know because I'll send you the book. It's around capturing the best system tools that you have and having a place to put them. So we all know that business owners are the bottleneck. Business owners are the ones that are working every day. They're doing all the work. Everyone's asking questions from them on how to do things. So the goal with systemology is to remove the business owner from the day-to-day operations of running the business. So we want to be able to say, business owner, we want you to take off for 6 months, a year, even forever from your business, and knowing that it's performing and working better without you. That's the goal. That's all of our goals. So whether your business is, you want to scale it or sell it, you have an opportunity to systemize your business to capture everything that you're doing within your business, both internally and externally, get them in a process like SystemHUB. And even if you don't use a product like SystemHUB, at least you have the ability to capture your processes and systems. So the idea with systemology is the approach. It's a 7-step approach where the first stage of those 7 steps is capturing or defining where those processes are. So you simply pick the most common service that you do or product that you sell. You work out, how do people find you? How are your customers finding you? And then you go into the onboarding process of, okay, what's the first stage? How do they communicate with us? Okay, what happens then? Do we do a quote? Okay, we send the quote, they review the job, you might get a deposit, you do the job, you then do a final deposit, and then you repeat that process. So that would be a classic critical client flow. And in that flow, we want to be able to capture who is the knowledgeable worker, who knows most about that process, and in that process, which department would it fall into? So typically you would have marketing, sales, finance, operations. Those are your 4 core departments. But once you start identifying every service that you're doing and you're putting them into the right department, you're identifying who knows most about each one of those processes. You can then extract that process from that person, document it. You can record it. You can do a screen share, a Zoom, a Loom, whereas Loom means that you can record a process on your computer. So imagine you're in front of Xero and you're just saying, this is how we add a contact in Xero. And you actually record that process in. And that recording and talking through that recording gets documented, but that video of the recording stays within your process. So in example SystemHUB, that video would be embedded inside that process, inside SystemHUB. So you can review to that whenever you need to. So what I thought I'll do, I'll just get out of full screen here and we'll jump straight into a blank critical client flow. Now, Az is joining us today. He's going to be going through his business, and I'm simply just going to ask him questions around what it looks like and how we get the attention. So how do people find you? What's the inquiry stage? What happens within the sales stage? Then we get to the money, the onboarding side, the delivery, and how do we repeat that? So the purpose behind a critical client flow is we start with the basics. We start with the service or product that you guys do every day. It's easy. It's a perfect client. We do the job, we get paid. It's a fantastic job. The reason we do that is because this critical client flow is stage 1 of creating a system to find and build your systems. And this process is repeated over and over again. So the more critical client flows you do, the more information you're capturing, the more information you can duplicate. So the processes then become, well, if we're doing a process on your social media or LinkedIn or something like that, well, that's the same process we do for every single service that we provide. So all we need to do is record it once and use it for every single service that we do. And that becomes the process for doing that. So in this example here, we've got Az sitting back ready to go. So I'm just going to go through the basics of a critical client flow. So Az, what would be your target client? So if you were looking at a perfect client that you know this back to front and it's a really good job, who would be that target client?
So any sort of premium service provider.
Okay. All right, I'm just going to jot that down there. So premium service provider. Yep. So that's the client type. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what product or service would that be?
Content marketing services.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so now what we're going to talk about now is how do people find you? So if you, in the boxes here are just an example, there could be 10 boxes of the way people find you. There could be 3, there could be only 2. There's no right or wrong. This is just the way that you have your business configured and set up right now. Because the goal here is to not talk about what you love to do, not talk about future ideas. You get to that point as you're brainstorming through it. what we're doing today is a Polaroid snapshot of what you're currently doing within your business. So then we can document it, we can isolate it down, but this forces your brain to stop and think about, okay, what's every stage that we go through in our business and why? Because I can guarantee you, as you get through this, you're going to suddenly realize that one, you're doing too much, or two, you're not doing enough. But this gives you an idea and gives you the actual opportunity to identify those holes. Okay, so what would be the first part of when people are trying to find you? What would that look like?
Events is probably our primary source of getting attention.
Okay, so when you say events, just give me a little bit more of an insight of what type of events are you doing?
Those sort of virtual workshops or live workshops that are around the theme of content marketing.
Yep. Okay. So when we're going through the critical client flow, and we want to stay as high level as we can, because by the time we start breaking this down, we could have events as a top level, but it could be 3 different types of events. So we're going to say events online, events digital, events on site, networking events, things like that. But we'll decide when we get closer into start extracting that particular area, whether or not it sits alone or it has 3 or 4 other processes. Because I find with our clients, they're going, oh, we got 10,000 processes. There's no way we can ever capture that. So we purposely say as high level as we can, then we start breaking it down as we really get into the nitty-gritty parts. So what's another way that people can find you?
Through joint ventures and strategic partnerships.
Okay, so we'll just put JV. Okay, what's another one?
Through content, through our own content marketing.
Okay. So these are posts that you're doing within your own company that you're posting out. Okay.
And groups.
Scripts?
Groups, online groups like Facebook groups and things of that nature.
Okay. So we might even just put social in there as well. And even the content would probably have a little bit of social.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's just say you've got your potential leads are out there. You're using these 4 little ways of getting their attention. What's the first stage? So if one of these groups were to contact you, what does that look like?
They'd apply for a brand concept.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so I'm just going to just fill that in, because I noticed that you mentioned before when we had this conversation, you said brand concept applications. Is that a form that they fill in?
Yeah, so it's like a job form that asks questions to make sure what we can do is a good fit and can actually solve their problems and be of value.
Got it. I got it. Okay. So let's say they fill in that form and it's spot on. What happens next?
So we'll have go away and put together the concept for them, so that will get curated and provided to the prospect from there.
Okay, so is that you have here, because I'm just reviewing what we talked about before, so I want to make sure we get the content spot on so it's crystal clear. So I've got sample content, sample concept delivered. Okay, I'm just want to use the same words just so that we know that it's coming across exactly right, so we'd be very succinct about what we're actually trying to do. So just give me a little bit more of a breakdown of what that means. So sample concept delivered.
Yeah, so basically we would give them, construct what their grid and what their brand and content would look like, and give that to them so they can showcase and see what that's going to look like in a visual example. So it gives them like that effect of actually, okay, so if we go down the path of creating content, this is what it's going to look like for our business and our brand online.
Perfect. Okay, so what happens next?
If they, from there, it's asking if they would like to get a customized plan for the content done for their company.
Okay, then what happens next?
There'll be a proposal. If they say, yes, we want to see what that looks like, we put forward a proposal.
Okay, so I'm just going to leave it at proposal. Again, we'll keep it high level. So if there's any details around how that proposal is set, we'll capture that when we're actually going through the extraction. Again, you might say, well, that proposal process has 2 or 3 things attached to it that I really want to break down. We can identify that when we move it into the next stage. Okay, so what happens after the proposal? So again, this is the perfect client. They've said yes to everything so far.
Yeah, so then they'll get set up on Stripe for their to come on board with their payment.
Okay, so just to explain, Stripe is the online merchant facility, which allows credit card, any type of credit card, bank, Apple Pay, Google Pay. So the client has the opportunity just to basically get on board, and you're signing them up for obviously reoccurring ongoing support. So you're not sending a deposit. You're not sending an invoice to be paid. Stripe is basically your method, your process for capturing payment. So it just becomes reoccurring. So it's a direct debit.
Yeah, exactly. So they'll have two options. One is if they did want to pay for a period of time upfront, or if they wanted to pay it off in weekly debits, then that's collected through Stripe.
Gotcha. Cool. So what happens once you've got them on board, you've got their Stripe account set up and running, what happens next?
So it's an onboarding session. So that's like a consultative session via Zoom or in person, depending on where they're located, to map out the initial plan that we put together and get everything that we need to move forward with the creation of the content.
Gotcha. Okay. So you've had the onboarding side. What happens next?
So depending on whether or not a website's included in this process, that would start getting curated by Alex in our team. So she'll start designing the website.
Okay. All right. So does that, I just want to be clear that we're not missing anything, because what we've discussed before, I just had the branding guide.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. Branding guide and website.
Okay. So I just want to make sure we're using the same language, because it's important that, and this basically has what we're doing in about 10 minutes, typically would take anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, because it's a brainstorming process. And if you're not clear about how this looks, and this is easy for you and I because we're going through it, because we've actually briefed this before, but typically just expect that this is going to be a frustrating and sometimes really confusing part, because even though you're running your business really well, you're not necessarily following the exact steps when you break it down like this. And most businesses can, you can easily just go, yeah, this is next. But to understand this isn't perfect, and this concept here of going through this process could take a couple of sessions of just trying to map it out. So sometimes you get through and you end up with 15 or 20 boxes more than what's here. And it's a reminder that we're doing a snapshot of what you're doing now, and we're trying to stay as high level as possible. Okay, so that's where today, it seems really easy that we're flying through it, but it can be, you're thinking through that process can take a lot longer than you think. So, okay, so the branding guide, and then here is where we mentioned the website.
The website. Yep.
And any other branding around the website? Because you said they may pick to do a website. There might be other things.
Yeah, so depending on if they've got a website getting overhauled or they don't have one and it's getting set up, that's an optional part of the process. And then from there, it's the visual assets, so the photographs and the digital IP, and of course the social posts that'll start getting curated.
Okay, cool. And then if it is a final step, that's great. If it's not, and we need to add more boxes, that's okay too. But in the next stage, what would that be?
Yeah, so starting to deliver the content for the client to go out on the socials.
Okay. So this is, in a perfect world, we've completely filled every single box perfectly, but again, it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. So basically what we do now, this is the critical client flow. We've captured the target client. And again, if you were a builder, that would be residential, it would be commercial, it'd be strata. If you're an electrician, it might be the same type of language. If you're an accountant, it might be consumer clients and business clients. So think about who your target client is, and you can even pick a particular client, a big client that you're working with, that you're providing a service to, because this might be your biggest client that you've got the 80-20 rule going on, where this client is 80% of your business is a single client. So it's okay to actually use the client name as the identifier, because then you're like, okay, well, we know that process perfectly. And again, the reason we're capturing it like this is because we're going to repeat the same process again and again for every single service and every single product. And it becomes easier and easier and easier as you work your way through it. So what happens after the critical client flow is we move them across to what's called a department roles and responsibility and team chart. So this little screen here is a Google Sheet. Again, it's the same sheet for every single business. There's nothing unique and different. We've identified the departments. So marketing, sales, operations, finance, human resources management, and tech. If you have your own department names, you just simply replace them. Again, there's no right or wrong, and nothing has to be perfect. But what we want to do is identify every single one of these, we're simply going to capture the word events. We come across here, So in events, which department do you think that would fall under?
I put it in marketing.
Okay, so we're just going to put it there.
Mm-hmm.
So we come back to our critical client flow and our JV.
Yeah, also marketing.
Okay. And you can see we're just following the same exact process. So every client that I work with, we do the same thing. So again, I'm going to assume marketing.
Yep.
And then we go to social groups and social.
Yep. Also marketing.
Okay. And again, it's just tidying these things up. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it helps us keep it nice and clean. Okay, so moving back to here. So now we're in the inquiry stage. So we have this brand concept application.
Mm-hmm.
Copy that.
That'll go into sales.
Okay, so we know that we put that in there. Come back into sample concept.
Yep.
Copy that.
Also in sales.
Yes. And we'll tidy up that text. And personalized plan.
Sales.
Proposal.
Also in sales.
Okay. And again, some people might say, well, that proposal would fall under finance. It depends on what type of business you're doing, what you're actually achieving in that process. But again, it's your way of doing it. Okay. So that's the most important thing to think of, is that you don't need to be like everyone else. We're simply just capturing the way you are doing it within your business, and everything else will fall into place as you start extracting the information. So now we're into collecting the Stripe.
Yeah. So that would be in the finance.
Okay.
Department.
Onboarding on Zoom.
Operational.
Kind of getting the drift of how we're doing this.
Also
so branding guide.
Operational.
Website and photos.
Operational.
And deliver content on socials.
Also operational.
Okay, so we'll just tidy up that little font, little text size. And I'll do the same. Let's bring that across a little bit. Okay, so basically we've identified the departments. So in this case, we have 4 departments that we're talking about. So we have marketing, sales, operations, and finance. Okay, so we've gone from the big picture down to working out which department these would fall into. Now, the knowledgeable worker means that in this marketing department of these 4 types of processes, who in your company knows most about that?
I would know the most about that. So as
now, remember, some companies would have a sales, operations, all the different types of managers. They might outsource contractors as well that do the marketing and sales. Like, depends on who that person is. There is no right or wrong, again, to have and then 3 or 4 other people sitting down here that also know. Because the idea is when we get to the events component, we want to talk about just that process and just extract that bit. There might be the 3rd person that knows most about the events, but as you know most about JVs. Okay, so again, we're talking sales. I'm going to assume it's as
in Paula, equally there.
So we'll do that and we'll do that. Okay, so you would be the primary knowledgeable worker, and then Paula's there to support. One of these things she might know more about than you do. So we'll grab her for that session. And when I say session, it's an opportunity to sit in Zoom. We record the session. And as we're recording, you're going through the process. You're telling me the story of how that process works. And we're extracting just that component. We're not jumping too far front or too far behind. We're saying, if you can say in 2 minutes, maybe 3, just the brand concept application process, what would it be? And don't jump into the next one. You just focus on that. And we stop there. We extract that, have examples, videos, screenshots, images, files, whatever is there to support that process is what we want to capture. Just one piece of puzzle at a time. Okay, so in operations, when we're talking about these things, knowledgeable worker.
Alex. Yeah. And as again.
Okay, so you're going to be the secondary there. Finance.
I'll put as.
Okay, so we've identified each one of these. We've identified a knowledgeable worker. Okay, so now we move across to what's called the systems assign sheet. Okay, so this, again, this spreadsheet is exactly the same. This is the systemology approach of how we do every single extraction, how we do capture every single process. You can customize this as much as you want to, but this is the simplest template to use that every systemologist globally is using this process, and they may tweak it a little bit to suit what you're doing. But the idea here is we do the same thing. We capture, if we looked at marketing and I copied just marketing, we know we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections or processes of marketing. We can simply go there and we copy this across. And so we know we have those to work on. Coming back to here, we can capture those 4. And we put them in the CCF name. Coming back to here, we know that we're now in sales. We also have 4. Coming back to that. And we have there. So again, we're just talking about the same processes from the original critical client flow, but we're just capturing it here. Is that Bailey?
That's Henry.
Oh, I was going to say, well, say hello. We'll come back to that. We'll grab these 4. And then our last one over here. Again, it's just the same process again and again. This one just seems super straightforward, but again, it's almost identical to every business that I've worked on over the last 2.5 years. Has been this exact same process. So we've captured the departments. We've captured the critical client flow name. Again, just one word. Now the SystemHUB names, we're just going to use basically the marketing and events as the example coming across this board. We're not going to do all of this. This is just purely just to give you a taste of what it looks like by the time we create that critical client flow and bringing it across that systems assign sheet. So in the SystemHUB name, typically, if you were to go into your SystemHUB or any of the processes you have, whether it be Dropbox, it might be Google Drive, it might be, OneShare, OneDrive, whatever that looks like. We call that a SystemHUB name purely because we use SystemHUB as where we're storing our processes. So if you use something different, you simply just change the name here. But in this example, if we were to give the events name, and I'll give you an example, this might even just be events process. That can be the name. Because you want to be able to go to the right location under marketing. You want to then say, this is for content only, which is the business that we're doing for this particular service. And we know that it's going to be classified. If I go back into here and see how we have content marketing services, I'm going to copy that and still bring it across to here. And we know because that's the service, because you might have 3 or 4 things you're working on. So we're going to call this the systems assign sheet by the service name. Keep it super simple. Okay, so coming back to here, the description. So to describe the events process, and let's just say this would be the title of this process, what would you call it? And again, I'll give you an example. You can simply say, this is the process of how we capture new clients through events, through running events.
Yeah, the tool we predominantly use is Eventbrite. So yeah, it could be virtual events to attract clients.
This is the process of how to attract new clients through, did you say virtual events?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, you can tweak it as much as you want to. Again, we have the knowledgeable worker. So in this case, we refer back to here, we know that it's you. Mm-hmm. So we bring this across here. So the resources part of it, and this is basically say, when you're going through this events process, we're only sticking with this process. What resource would you have to back up that process? So if you were to tell me the story of how that works, that's great. We can record it, we can document it. But do you use Excel, a spreadsheet, Google Sheet, document, Xero, do you use your CRM? You mentioned you've got an event management, a Bright, Eventbrite. So could that be something that if you went to the Eventbrite website and went through the process of setting up for the events, would that be something that could support this process? Yeah. Okay, so we'll put Eventbrite. Any other resources that you would use to support that process?
No, primarily Eventbrite.
Okay.
And socials as well.
Okay, so we can use some examples. You might do, again, we're talking about Loom is a product where it records what you're doing on your computer as you're talking through it. So Loom is fantastic for capturing your processes. So if you haven't used Loom, look up Loom and get it on your computer. It can be an extension on your Google Chrome as well. But if you can use Loom, you're basically just going 3, 2, 1, boom, and it's now recording everything you're doing on your computer. This is what we do every single day to capture a process that's being supported by some cloud app. So you can talk through it, you can go through it. So imagine if you're onboarding someone new within your business and they've jumped in to your SystemHUB or your systems management tool, and not only do you have the story of why you do this process, you've got bullet points of how you're doing it, but then you have a supported video of you talking through it and actually showing the actual process as well. Like that is the most amazing way to capture a process. So we're going to just put social because you might jump on your social and zing through how that actually looks. So when we talk about capture method, typically Zoom, Loom, and if you use Google Meet, if you're using Teams, whatever that works for you, how are you going to be capturing the process here? All right, so because if you can imagine we filled all this in, all these are going to have their unique ways of how you're capturing, who's doing what resources, how you're going to capture it. Now we move to the extraction date. So the date that we actually go through and extract this out of your head and get it in here, we actually note this date. So you simply just put 16 like that, okay? The pre-extraction form means, let's say we approach a business and they say, well, the sales manager just doesn't have time to sit in for 15 minutes and let you record how they do that process. So we would send them a pre-extract form that they could fill in and capture that entire process in their own time offline, that they can do it, or sometimes they use a pre-extraction form to prepare themselves for an extraction. So it might be a heavy step-by-step process that they don't want to miss anything while they're being recorded or telling the story of how that happens. So they might fill in the pre-extraction form and have that with them to give them prompts of what that process looks like as they're talking through it. So there's no way we can miss anything because some people, they're shy, they don't want to be in front of a camera, they don't want to do a recording. This is a perfect way of actually capturing everything without missing anything, okay? So that can be used. And then the SystemHUB URL, this is basically, again, your project management tool of choice. This is an actual URL link back to your SystemHUB or back to wherever you're storing your processes. So the idea is we want to be able to use a systems assigned sheet, almost like a legend that you would have in a map. So this is your go-to as you're working your way through it. So everything we do here, we capture the link. So when you click that, it takes you straight to the process. So if you're working on it and it's work in progress, you want to get back to it as quickly as possible rather than going back to the folder structure or SystemHUB and trying to find, okay, content marketing services, marketing events, oh, there it is. This is simply a link directly back to it, okay? The documenter, this is identifying who's going to be doing the documenting, any supporting notes that go through here. So the way that we have the systems assigned sheet is basically, and this is a color code that we use inside the SystemHUB as well, is typically green or orange or black. And what that means is if we're in progress, so we've actually started capturing the process of this. So we've done some recordings, we've done some documentation, but it's not completed yet. Typically what we would do is give that an orange color. Now, if this one we haven't started at all, we'll leave it as black. And let's say that we get this one completed, we go to there and we mark it off as green. So again, if you have 20 or 30 processes that you've captured, you want to be able to see, okay, which ones have we done? And you give yourself a virtual high five when you get the one that turns green, because green is good. The ones that are orange are the ones you're still working on. And the ones that are black are the ones that you're basically haven't started yet, but you've captured. So in a perfect world, you want to have everything green. Your goal is to get everything green. So you capture everything and then you move along and you start again. So what would be the second target client that you might be working at? It might be the same target client, but it's a different type of product or service you're offering. Then in that process, you're going to say, well, that's the same. And that's the same, that's the same. It's the same all up until we get about here. And the process is slightly different. And that was the same, and that's the same. So what you've done is once you've done your first critical client flow and you've captured the processes and got it to that systems assigned sheet, The next one, well, 80% of it's already done. You're simply duplicating that process into the next service. So the more you do, the easier it gets. It's the first one is the hardest, but the goal is to get every single thing documented. So by the time you get it to your systems management program, you have it completely set up and going. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to capture, and I'll show you what a systemology or what SystemHUB looks like. And we might even just log into ours just to give you an idea of what it looks like. And I'm just going to do a quick overview. So you can see here, we have our systems, we have our departments, and each one of these departments has every service that we work on. Okay, then each one of these services has the breakdown. So you can see the dots are green. So if we went into social media and LinkedIn, this is simply how we operate the process. And this is a video using Loom on how we actually use LinkedIn for our own marketing. Okay, so each one of these that you go through, you can see I've identified every single service that we do. We've identified it through a critical client flow. We've identified it through a systems assigned sheet, and we bring it across to this platform of SystemHUB. So the departments are there, and you can see sales has the same, in this case, 14 different services that we do. Operations, the same 14. Finance, exactly the same. So it's work in progress. But the more critical client flows that we do into a systems assigned sheet, the easier these get, because simply every one of these from A to D is exactly the same as our next service. We haven't had to recreate the wheel or do it twice. We simply duplicate that into the next product. So when we move across to policies, this is where you have your own policies based around your organizational structure. You might have your org chart, company policies, workplace policies, employment policies. Everything is broken down so that every single thing that you're doing in your business is captured. And the goal, again, is you want to be able to scale your business to make your business sellable. Whether you want to sell it or not, you want to get it into a point where every single thing that you're doing within your business is captured inside here. When you talk about the training side, it says just 3 bits. There's 3 sections inside SystemHUB. So when you go to training, you're now capturing all of the wonderful process you've captured in here, and you bring it into a learning track. So with the learning track, you basically say, right, we want to learn more about how each one of these products work. So we then simply have a learning track for each one. So you can see we've broken it down into how to do certain things. And in the learning track, you can set it up in such a way that it can be assigned to a particular person in your business. They go through and they have to learn how to do a particular learning track. And then they can tick it off to say that they've completed it. And so the manager of the business can then see, right, that person's 30% through that course, or that person's completed 100%. That person's now ready to take on that role because they've gone through and they've actually completed that learning track. Okay, so that's where we start from here. We start at very high level. We bring it across to that DRTC. And again, once you finish reading the book of systemology, the terms of CCF, DRTC, systems assigned sheet, SAS, it all becomes everyday language because you start to have systems mindset. You start thinking like a systems champion. And then you bring it across to here. And again, you just create this over and over again. So from this view here, you can simply say, well, this is our head folder. We know where everything is. We know that everything is captured through the 7 steps. So when we have our systemology, there's our define stage. Then we assign it, we extract it, we then organize it, integrate it, scale it, and optimize. So those are your 7 steps of systemology that you go through. But the define is defining what product and service we'll be talking about and which department would it fall into. We assign it to the department and we assign an eligible worker, and we assign every single part that's attached to that particular process. Now we extract it. We go through and we physically take out all the information out of the business owner's head or the knowledgeable worker's head to say, just tell us the story about how that process works. We're going to document it. We're going to record it. We're going to support it with bullet points and videos and role plays even. I've had a client go through in a doctor's office and they recorded a pretend patient walking in and greeting the front desk. And they use that recording of this is how the front desk, this is how we greet clients. And they use that recording inside here, which is embedded inside the SystemHUB as well. Okay, so once you have the system in here, the goal now is to get everyone on board. So everyone buys in to basically using your systems or management tool to go to find out how to do things. You can even go as far as to say that if this is a process how we use social media and LinkedIn, you can now even go as far as to say, I'd like to share this with someone outside of our business. So it could be a contractor, it could be your marketing contractor that's working for you. You can simply share it and you can copy that URL. And when they get this. So it's a website simply with that process and the video, and any templates that you have here are accessible externally. And if you get it to a point where, let's just say you don't want to share that anymore with that particular person or whatever, you simply click the share button and regenerate a new URL. Okay. So the other thing you can do, which is a lot of fun we've been doing with our clients, is you're simply, if we go to this page here, you can create a QR code. So now you can send this QR code to anyone. You can print it out and laminate. I've got a client that's laminating the QR codes and they're putting it on top of every tool that they have in the business. So before you can touch that tool, they have to scan the URL, or scan the QR code, and it comes up on their phone, and the full process and video comes up on the phone explaining how that process works. And they have to watch that before they can touch that tool. So the idea there, again, is just capturing every single thing you're doing every single day, recording it once, and allowing others to watch it 1,000 times. So that's the goal of capturing your systems through systemology. So I wanted to leave a little bit, 10, 15 minutes for any questions. I'm going to jump on a chat and see if there's anyone has any questions at all. Feel free to jump in. If you want to unmute and ask any questions as well, you can go for it. But I'd love to get some questions if there are any. Don't be shy. No, Mickey, how are you?
Rob, Jim Carlin.
Hey, Jim, how are you?
Great. Hey, could you demonstrate this, if there's a search function in SystemHUB and how that works?
Sure. So let's go back into here and let's say there's your search function there. So you can search any keywords. So if I was to type in LinkedIn, it'll basically bring up every single process that has the word LinkedIn in it. More importantly, inside of each one of these processes, the key thing to think about when you're creating any sort of process is when you go down to edit mode, every process you have, you can add tag words. So if you have tags and you put words like LinkedIn and any other tags that might be associated to that, you can simply put here. Okay, so you can search keywords, but to make sure 100% you're not going to miss any of your processes, use those tags and use those tags in here. Okay. Any other questions at all? Any comments? Any questions in the chat at all? As any questions with regards to what we went through today? This is the first time we've done a full-blown CCF.
Yeah, it's a very, very powerful process to unpack. I think the main one is, making sure that you have access to those tools that you were sharing at the start so you can start piecing it all together. So I guess my questions is, out of the 5 different department types tools that you show, is there any that you lean towards in terms of which are the most effective? Like when you look at, say, ClickUp versus another solution, are there any that you've found are more user-friendly and you lean towards in terms of recommending them?
Yeah, so basically, if you were to ask me my best practices or my favorites of all of these, then I would say that ClickUp for me is the tool of choice for project management. Now, I have a lot of clients are using Asana, a handful of clients are using Monday, and there's also Trello, and there's other programs that are out there. ClickUp just seems to be the most user-friendly, and it's super powerful. So once you start using ClickUp at a very basic level, you can then just keep on adding to it and adding to it. And the support that's in ClickUp is amazing. They've got a ClickUp Academy that you can go into as well. And it just dig deeper and deeper and deeper. So I thought I knew a lot about ClickUp until I started jumping on other clients and they're showing me what they're using ClickUp for. And I'm amazed at some of the things you can do inside ClickUp. It is incredible.
Big thing for us, Rob, was that it got ISO certification as well just recently.
So who was that? I just want to just jump on and see.
Oh, that was Melissa.
Oh, hello.
Hi, how you going?
Good. Oh, that's great. Okay, cool. So any other questions with regards to any of these tools? And obviously I'll just give you a breakdown. I love Google Workspace. Xero is what we use. ClickUp is what we have. And Pipedrive is a Pipedrive partner. We've been a partner with Pipedrive for over 12 years. It is our CRM of choice. And obviously we're deeply embedded in SystemHUB and promote that very much. So any other questions at all? Any other comments? Hey, Alexis. So what I might do is I'll just jump down into the resources. So anything that you'd love to know anything more about us is our websites here. So we're cloudconnect.com. If you want to learn anything more about the systemology overall, systemology.cloudconnect.com. Again, ClickUp, we're a partner with ClickUp. So clickup.cloudconnect.com. Pipedrive as well. There's our sign-up form if you ever wanted to do a 14-day trial of Pipedrive. I am going to do a Pipedrive webinar next month on LinkedIn. So we're really going to dig deep on a demo with Pipedrive and then see how we're capturing Pipedrive, how we're capturing the work that we're doing and how it's complementing the processes that we're reading through as well, and how that ends up back into our SystemHUB as well. So, and again, if you need to reach out at all, my email is robert@cloudconnect.com. And for everyone that's actually in this call, outside of the other systemologists, feel free to either in the LinkedIn message, send me your postal address because I'm going to send you a book if you haven't got one already, or if you want another book to give to one of your team members or someone that you know, let me know and I'll post these books out this week. But yeah, so if any other questions at all, let me know. I will definitely do that. I wonder if I can just copy that and put it in the chat. I'll try it.
I was going to say, can you copy and paste it into the chat? Thanks.
Yeah. Let's see, did that work? Yeah, okay. So again, this is being recorded. We will have the recording of today's session sent to you in LinkedIn as well. If you have joined us directly through the Zoom channel, then we will email the recording to you as well. But that said, if anyone has any other questions, let me know. Feel free to reach out and contact me directly either through email or LinkedIn. But other than that, that's it for today. As any other questions?
No, that's fantastic, mate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for contributing. I appreciate your help.
Having me as a bonus, free service. I loved it.
Exactly. So anyone else that would love to do a CCF, jump in, connect to a Zoom call, shoot me an email. Again, we can zing through it or just do a bit of an overview. Happy to spend the time to go through and ensure that you're capturing the right processes for your business. And even if we just have a quick 15-minute session, just to do a bit of an overview of where you're at, happy to connect. All right. So thanks, guys. Thanks for coming. And I will see you in the middle of next month, or probably towards the end of January. We'll do another webinar as well.
Thanks very much, Rob. Cheers.
All right. Take care.
Mate, that was awesome.